10 years of sitting didn't do this bike any favors. Aside from $650 in registration fees, I got it for free. I've wanted a Shadow for years, so I was very excited at first to have such a good-looking example of this old-school Japanese cruiser. The problem is it is mechanically totaled. Logically, not worth fixing. I've spent a lot of time and money with the hope of taking it on a big road trip to the Grand Canyon, but all that work was just side quests compared to the repair I'll be starting on today. It definitely is not worth it, but at this point I am in too deep, and I am too stubborn not to see it through.
If you've been following along, you already know that last episode I found out the motor's gonna have to come out. This is because the water pump sits right here behind a frame rail, and it's leaking real bad. I've done a lot of motor work, but I've always been smart enough to avoid something that needed the engine to come out of the frame for any repairs. Unfortunately, my streak is over, so this is gonna be my first motor pull ever. I have a service manual for the bike, but I think what I'm just gonna do to avoid making any mistakes is completely ignore it and just start pulling shit apart. I got this kit from this dude out in Arizona, and it came with pages and pages of instructions. You can't buy new water pumps for these for less than like $400. And like I said, you're not supposed to service them. So once we get it out, it's gonna be hydraulic press, blow torch, a lot of measuring, a lot of cursing probably. Hopefully after that we'll have a fully rebuilt water pump.
I hyped this job up to be a lot harder in my head than it really was. All you're really doing is just unhooking everything and then unbolting the motor. As long as you're diligent and keep track of your parts, this is not something you should really be scared of doing. If you're wondering why there's a shopping cart in my garage, I have plans to chop it up and turn it into a sidecar for my Grom, so subscribe if you want to see that. Because of the age of the bike and how few of them are still on the road, this is going to be the most detailed video on pulling the motor on these bikes that's going to exist on the internet, which I know because I looked really hard before starting the job. Another fun part about how old it is I'm missing a couple of these side covers, and they're just so expensive on eBay. So if anyone has any ideas on how to fab some up for myself at home, let me know. I was missing this air duct when I got the bike, and don't ask me why, but you can buy it straight from Honda to this day. I'm going John Wayne Gacy on these carburetors here, which is a reference you should not look up if you don't get it. It's a good idea to plug off any holes that can let debris or hardware into the engine. I did occasionally consult the service manual, and one of the things it said you had to do was pull off the left side cover and pull out the shift shaft, or the motor just simply would not fit out of the frame, which I know is false because I did it. I don't know how they make mistakes like this and just go ahead and publish them. After wrestling with these radiator hoses for a little bit, I realized it'd be a lot easier if I had some movement in the radiator, which I was taking off anyway, so I got to work on that, and then the hoses came off a lot easier. You can see there is some actual coolant in here, but it's also pretty orange, which I feel could easily be the consequence of running tap water in the system for a long time, or just because it's sat for so many years. But you will see the consequence of not running good coolant in this motor when I open up the actual water pump itself and take a look at the impeller. After disconnecting all the connectors and hoses, I popped the radiator off and dropped it in the cart. Some of the connectors got numbered labels just to help me know where stuff went when I went to put it back together. I just continued disconnecting everything I could get my hands on, trying to label stuff as I went and put hardware back where it came from originally where it was possible, just for less hardware to have to manage and sort through at the end of the job. This cover came off to give me access to the clutch slave cylinder and the final drive. After pulling off the slave cylinder, I put the hardware in this labeled organizer, which is something I really recommend for maintaining your sanity when you have a lot of different nuts and bolts you're working with. Next I had to remove this side cover, which was in the way of getting this water pipe out. The water pipe I had to remove because it's in the way of the final drive bolts. And underneath this cover I found this milky stuff.
But I really don't understand that because I drained the oil and there's no coolant in it. It's a little bit dark for only having 50 miles on it, but it's really not bad. So I don't know why that would be. I don't know, I'm just gonna clean it out and hope it's not a sign of a bigger problem. So I've got to remember to replace the O-ring on this pipe here. But now I can get to these bolts that hold the final drive onto the motor. That's one of the last few things. Just disconnecting a bunch of wires up here, and then we'll be good to go.
Here I'm unbolting the final drive. I will explain later in the video through a lot of frustration why the service manual led me astray here, but I pulled all these bolts out, and as far as I knew, I was going to be good to go and it was all going to come loose, but it definitely bit me in the ass later.
And I have no idea if it actually disconnected it, but I guess we'll see when we try to pull the motor out.
After unhooking the remaining 2 spark plug wires, I got to work on the cables for the carburetor. So there's 2 throttle and then choke cables. This is one of those tasks that I will never not find incredibly annoying to do. I mean, you're watching it in like 3.5 times speed. I could have just cut all this out, but I had to do it, so I feel like it's only fair if you have to watch me do it. But I guess that's what you're here for anyway, so I don't know. Hopefully you like it. You might notice I don't include video of me doing the right side choke cable, and that is because I completely forgot to do it somehow.
Here we go.
So that caused some damage later on, but nothing I can't fix.
Guys, we might be ready to pull the motor mounts and drop this thing out of here. I think there's one cable. This is for the generator, like the regulator rectifier. So I'm gonna have to pull that cable through. Let's find that. This cable here goes down underneath, so I gotta unplug this connector here. I don't think that can pull through until the engine's out, so I'm just gonna leave it in place. What about this though? Where does this even lead to? Maybe like a crank position sensor? So let's trace that. Is it this bit? Let's see. Yeah, that's it. Right there. I'll get those unplugged. We'll move on to the next step.
Now I was ready to start pulling mounts out. And this engine actually weighs a couple 100 pounds, maybe 250, so I recruited a buddy of mine to help me do some of the heavy lifting.
See, that'd be great if we could just drop it onto that.
Wouldn't it be kind of sick? Look, it rolls off of it, so the jack wouldn't even get stuck.
Really?
Yeah,
That's gonna work so good.
I think it's gonna.
So it didn't work good at all, and that's because it's on a kickstand instead of a center stand, and you need everything to be angled right so that it can slide in and out properly. And that's what I did on the way back in, and it worked great. So if you're doing this project for yourself, make sure you put the bike on a center stand. You'll have a much easier time than we did.
Once we get weight off of the motor, then we can hammer all these mounts out.
Let's put this easy out. Alright.
This went so much better than I thought it was gonna. If this part doesn't go well, then I'll feel like a dumbass, but.
So far, so good.
Ooh. Motor moved. So why isn't it coming off of the drive shaft? I took off the bolts it said to take off, but maybe I didn't. Alright, well maybe I need to spend some time trying to figure this part out. It just says remove those 3 bolts that secure the output gear case. It didn't say to pull that bolt out. It's pointed to 3 of them. But maybe we should just pull them all out? Dude! We just spent the last 30 minutes trying to get the final drive to disconnect from the motor because the stupid service manual says that it's these 3 specific bolts and not to remove the other ones, but you have to remove the other ones or it doesn't come off. So I just removed them and now it's coming off, so it's coming out. Right?
Yep.
I know what I'm doing.
Yep.
Oh, fuck.
Oh, fuck. It's still on. Oh, now it's not.
Stop. What the fuck?
Oh, what's that? Just stuck.
I might have just broken my choke.
Ready, Morty.
I think I broke it. Because I forgot to take that side off because I was excited. Well, that's probably fixable. I definitely broke this. Because see, look at this, dude. I fucking pulled this side off. Well, I was bound to break something.
Yeah, but, well, I mean, shit, at least it's off.
Well, that was incredibly unprofessional.
At least we have a nice thing for it.
But dude, you know what's cool about the fact that we don't fucking make any money doing this? Is that we can be as unprofessional as we want. Right? That sucked. Will this motor ever make its way back into the frame and run again? Stay tuned to find out next week on this shitty YouTube channel. I'm so tired.
After a couple days of much needed time away from the project, I got started pulling the water pump out. I had to lay it on its side in order to easily get to the bolts for the cover, but this part really wasn't bad at all.
So this is the water pump impeller, and all this residue, this brown residue, I think might be corrosion and oil leaking past the mechanical seal and into the cooling system. Not looking great. I'm very gently prying on the back of this housing to try to get it off. Apparently these can break real easy, so we're just gonna take it slow. Stuff a rag in to keep debris out. There's a seal inside behind here that has to come out, and the impeller has to come off of this shaft and be replaced onto the new one. And all that requires a hydraulic press, like I said earlier, so I can't really make any more progress at the moment until I get that.
Thank you for watching. If you got something out of this, please give it a thumbs up. In the next episode, you'll be seeing me reinstall this freshly polished up motor with a freshly rebuilt water pump, and then we are instantly gonna hop on it and take it 80 miles away to visit my friend in Santa Cruz. Will I make it there and back without breaking down? You probably already know the answer, but stick around to find out. See you guys soon.